Hey everyone, it's Chantel. So I've been getting tons of messages asking me about my journey, like how did I go from doing random freelance work to creating coloring books? Why coloring books specifically? And honestly, it's such a personal story that I've been putting off sharing it for so long. But here we are. So let's talk about it and color along as I color a page from one of my coloring books. Since I make my coloring books on Amazon, I always like to make them single-sided, and I also like to put a piece of paper or a baking sheet on the back of the other side so it doesn't bleed through when using markers. So grab a cup of coffee or tea, get cozy because this is going to be a long one, but I promise it's worth it if you've ever felt stuck between what pays the bills and what you actually love. Okay, so let me paint a picture of my life. It was about 2 years ago and I was just trying to make it work, like my brain was constantly running and talking 40 different mental tabs open at all times. There's a tab with my never-ending to-do list, another one replaying every awkward conversation I've had throughout the whole entire week, one desperately trying to remember if I texted my mom back, and at least 12 other tabs just buffering while mindlessly scrolling Instagram telling myself it's market research. Anyone else relate to this? Because tell me I'm not alone. So I was doing freelance work for other businesses, and when I say freelance work, I mean anything that paid the bills. Marketing copy, UGC, admin ads, consulting projects, you name it. And I still do the same. Basically anything except the one thing I love doing, which is art. Here's the thing though, I've been drawing my entire life, like since I was a kid. I was that kid that drew little hearts and flowers literally on everything. My school notebooks looked like someone had put rainbows and cute characters all over them. I would see a puddle and immediately imagine what kind of tiny little fairy might even live inside of the puddle. Such a huge imagination, but somewhere along the way, probably around secondary school or maybe by university, I just got the message that art was just a hobby. Like, that's nice, Chantel, but what's your real career going to be? So I built this whole freelance business around what clients needed and not what I loved. And don't get me wrong, I'm still doing this work today. I'm slowly transitioning because hello, bills still need to be paid, but back then it was 100% of what I did, and I'm good at it, decent money, regular clients, everything looked stable from the outside, but inside it felt a little bit more like I was going through the motions. I had my whole world set up where I was doing my real work during business hours, and then only if I'd been productive enough, only if I earned it, I would let myself draw for like an hour before I went to bed. Like it was some kind of guilty pleasure I had to reward myself with. How messed up is that? I was literally rationing my own joy. So this went on for years, and guys, I didn't even realize how disconnected I'd become from myself until one night I was like, forget it. I was at my desk at 11 p.m. working on a client project that should have taken maybe just a few hours, but it dragged on and on just because I couldn't focus. I remember looking at my computer screen and glancing over at my art supplies in the corner, and they were just untouched, literally dusty. When was the last time I had touched them? I couldn't remember. And that's when it hit me. This is one of my things that I love doing to do for joy, one of my biggest sources of joy. And it's how I processed my world, how I expressed myself, and it had become this afterthought, this thing that I'd do someday when I had time. I stayed out all night and all that night thinking about the little girl, the person who I used to be, spending entire weekends making up stories, drawing characters. She never questioned whether it was practical or profitable. She just knew that it made her happy. And what had I done with that happiness? The next day, I had woken up feeling like I was watching my own life from the outside, like this freelancer that was going through the motions, but it wasn't me. It was like some version of me that I'd created to fit other people's expectations. So, okay, fast forward a few weeks after that, and I swear it's always on a Tuesday when your life starts to change, because I just gotten off a soul-crushing call with a client, smiling and nodding where they had cancelled their project with me, and I just literally couldn't care less, but I was also stressed about it. I was stress cleaning my office, classic avoidance behavior, when I found this old sketchbook behind some boring stuff. And you guys, when I opened it up, I almost cried. There were all these little drawings that I'd completely forgotten about, tiny little bears in oversized sweaters, sleepy little characters surrounded by plants, little animals reading books. They were so peaceful, so soft, and so completely opposite of the harsh, productive grind mode energy that I had been living in. Looking at these forgotten drawings, I felt a sharp longing to get back to that. Not grief, but recognition, like, oh my God, this is what I am. This is who I am, and it's what I actually love. And how did I let it get buried over so much noise? It was such a fun activity. So I did something I hadn't done in months. I grabbed some coloring pencils. I know, coloring pencils sounds like so kiddish, but it felt really safe, you know? Like I couldn't mess it up too badly. I sat on the living room floor and I put on some chill music, made some tea, and I just colored for the first time in forever. I wasn't multitasking. I wasn't checking my phone. I wasn't thinking about what I should be doing instead. And you guys, I felt my entire nervous system just exhale. Like I'd been holding my breath for years and finally remembered how to breathe. And for 45 minutes, I was completely present. And when I finished, I felt something I hadn't experienced in so long. Alignment. Like I was finally being honest about who I actually was. And that night changed everything. I started sketching again. And I started working on children's books, illustrations, because I wanted to. I drew sleepy characters in pajamas, little cats, little cute characters, things that I just love drawing things that felt like a part of myself that I'd been ignoring. And here's where it got interested. I started sharing these on Instagram super casually, just like, here's a cozy drawing I made with, a really cute caption about slowing down, about being yourself. And I got lovely messages from people. And that's when I realized that I wasn't alone in having buried my dreams under being something realistic. So this happens to a lot of us. And that creativity is a luxury that we can't afford. And following our hearts is somehow less important than following a traditional path. But what if that is complete rubbish? What if the most practical thing that we can do is to honor what makes us come alive? And that's how Comfy Friends was born. Not as a brilliant business strategy, but as a love letter to every woman who's ever felt like she has been living someone else's life. But let me be real with you, it was scary. I spent years building up the client base and I couldn't just drop everything overnight. The voices in my head were super loud. What if it doesn't work? What if people don't take you seriously as an artist? What if you lose your existing income? There's just so much things to think about and how to build your portfolio, and I'm still going through it. And louder than the fear was knowing that I couldn't keep ignoring what made me feel happy. I couldn't keep treating my art like it didn't matter. So I'm taking the leap slowly. I'm still doing my client work because realistically I need the income and I need it while I build this dream. But I started saying no to projects that felt completely soul-sucking, and yes to carving out real time for my art. I'm invested in this YouTube channel. I've set aside dedicated creative hours, and I've started treating my art seriously, like it deserved to be taken. Every page of Comfy Friends became an act of courage. A bear that looks cute. And, that is just me learning how to find comfort in quiet moments. The cozy little characters, the reading nooks. That was my way to create permission, to create peaceful spaces in my own life. And when I launched the book, I was honestly terrified. I wrote this vulnerable post about choosing dreams over security, and I hit publish and immediately wanted to hide. And a few sales trickled in, and I was really grateful. I loved knowing that my little baby was out there in the world, and that moment I realized that dreams don't have expiration dates. Can we just sit with that for a second? So here's where I am right now, months later after Comfy Friends is out there in the world. I'm still pinching myself that it's real. I'm still doing client work. This transition is not happening overnight. That's okay. Some days I'm doing marketing copy. Other days I'm drawing cozy, cute characters. It's this weird, beautiful balance of building my dream while keeping the lights on. My days look completely different now. Instead of dreading Monday mornings, I wake up excited to create because I built art into my morning. And instead of art being a reward for real work, art is my real work. Instead of feeling like I'm living for someone else's life, I'm finally living for my own. Don't get me wrong, building a creative business has its challenges, and I've always struggled with figuring out how to monetize my art. And there are still moments of doubt, still days when I feel like financial uncertainty feels overwhelming. But then I get a message from someone, or I see a photo of someone coloring in one of my illustrations, and I know that I've made the right choice. So why do I make coloring books for women who need a break? Because I am that woman. Because we all are, in different ways, at different times. Because I believe the world needs more people who are brave enough to honor what they love, even when it doesn't make sense to anyone else. So make room, make time for those cozy hobbies, because if you love drawing, if you love coloring, do them. Because I know what it feels like to bury your dreams under practical concerns, and I know what it feels like to dig them up again. Both are hard, but only one leads to a life where you're excited to wake up. If you're watching this and feeling that familiar tug towards something you've been just calling a hobby, or if you tried building someone else's dreams while your own ones collect dust, if you're finally ready to bet on what brings you joy, this is your reminder that it's not too late. You don't have to quit everything overnight. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to start. So here's what I want you to leave with. That thing you love doing in your spare time, that silly creative project that you keep putting off, that dream that you've been calling impractical. What if it's not impractical at all? What if it's exactly what the world needs from you? If you're ready to remember what brings you joy, I made Comfy Friends for exactly this moment. It's perfect for cozy hobbies. It's more than just a coloring book. It's permission to slow down, to choose what you love, to remember that following your dreams is a practical thing that you can do for your soul. It's to help you slow down, and the link is in the description below. And if you've enjoyed this video so far and want to color with me, I do these color with me sessions where you just hang out with me together and create. No pressure, no perfect results required, just good vibes, gentle creativity. Sometimes I talk, sometimes it's just music. Just make sure that you're subscribed and hit the bell so that you don't miss out on them. The little girl who drew hearts on everything is finally running the show. And honestly, she's building something pretty amazing. What dream have you been putting off? Or what hobby have you been putting off? Drop it in the comments below. I read every single one, and I want to cheer you on because your dreams matter, your hobbies matter, your joy matters, and it's never too late to start honoring what makes you feel alive. Thanks for hanging out with me today, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, be gentle with yourself, relax, and live the soft life in your soft, cozy hobbies.